Conjures are an integral part of Necromancy combat, but how good are they on their own? Let's find out together, so whenever you're ready, grab your cup of tea, sit back, relax, and enjoy. As the title of this video suggests, we'll be taking a look at Conjures and how much damage they can put out on their own. Essentially, what I'm trying to figure out is if being a Necro Summoner is a viable playstyle. I'm very much aware that Jagex has yet to announce what the fourth Conjure will be, but since I felt like playing around a bit, I decided not to wait for that. Now, as you might already know, to summon every single Conjure in the game, you'll need to have a main and offhand Necromancy weapon equipped, in addition to a consumable item called Ectoplasm in your inventory. If you unequip your Skull Lantern, so the offhand weapon, your conjured spirits will disappear instantly. Interestingly, if you unequip your main hand weapon, this isn't the case and the conjured spirits continue to live. This means you're able to freely swap your main hand weapon after having summoned the spirits. I was wondering if swapping to a lower tier weapon would affect damage output of your conjured spirits, but ended up pleasantly being surprised after finding out that conjures deal damage based on your equipped weapons and boosts at the point of being summoned, which means their damage remains constant throughout their duration. I figured this out by comparing summon damage between high tier and lower tier, in this case tier 10 weapons. This means I'm able to use lower tier weapons to gain adrenaline during combat without reducing the damage my conjures deal. Even better, I can use a weapon like a tier 10 wand to reduce accuracy and almost do zero damage of my own, while still being able to gain adrenaline to juice up my conjures using their secondary abilities. Remember, the goal here is to deal as little damage as possible while having 99% of the damage dealt be spirit damage, so the damage my conjures dish out. Maximizing conjure damage with my setup also requires me to keep my conjures alive as long as possible to reduce downtime. Assuming you have Spirit Pack 3 in your Well of Souls, all Conjures have a fairly lengthy duration of around a minute, with the Ghost lasting the shortest at 48 seconds. There are two ways of increasing the duration of Conjures currently. One is the first Necromancer's armor set, which can increase its duration by up to 25% with 5 pieces, in addition to damage boosts. And the other is the Life Transfer Incantation, aka spell. While I could technically buy the first Necromancer's armor set, I do kind of want to save some money for the upcoming boss and its potentially awesome drops. And I mean, this way you kind of get to see if this strategy is effective without having to have the best installed armor set, although in hindsight 35% extra damage and a 25% longer duration would have made things easier and faster. Anyways, life transfer is the way I'm going to be increasing my conjures uptime. Unfortunately for me, buffing up my conjures with the life transfer spell does require both the main and offhand weapon to be equipped, so I ended up needing to keep buying my Necromancy main hand and that lower tier 1 to swap between during combat. Now, before I get into the first practical test, I do need you to know that the Vengeful Ghost Haunt ability is a beast of a buff to these conjures. Upon activating, it boosts your conjure's damage, which has incredible synergy with the zombie's passive stench and the skeleton's command ability, allowing you to deal a lot of damage in a short time frame. The Ghost's secondary ability is so important and probably the main reason I need to be able to gain adrenaline during a fight other than resummoning the conjures when in combat. The first boss up for testing was the King Black Dragon, not because the boss is difficult, but because I wanted to figure out if conjures could apply and trigger the Death Mark ability from my tier 90 armor set. For those unfamiliar, Death Mark executes a target below 20% max life points capped at 30,000 damage. Although unfortunately, as I figured out, Death Mark cannot be applied by your conjures, aka spirit damage, at least not yet. Your conjures, on the other hand, are able to trigger Death Mark when applied using the Invoke Death Incantation, a game-changing discovery that I kind of already knew was possible, but yes, this is a game changer. The only problem is I'll need to use my higher tier weapon and a single Necromancy attack to apply it on a target every single time, which is a little bit unfair because it's not spirit damage, but you know, we'll live with it. It's fine. It allows you to do funny things like this at Queen Black Dragon, where the final phase is pretty much over instantly. Next up, it was time to try a boss that's basically DPS dummy for any high level player, Vindicta. And the great thing about Vindicta is that you're able to pre-summon and extend your conjures without using any adrenaline before the fight, because as long as you don't have a target, it doesn't cost any adrenaline to summon these conjures. Now, while it might sound simple, it was quite tricky to get used to just using conjures as damage and then occasionally hitting the boss with my tier 10 wand, which would deal like 0 damage, and my first kill ended up being 2 minutes long, which is, you know, wasn't as fast as I expected. But I did learn something new, being that spirit damage is able to fill up the damage cap required to launch the Aftershock perk at your target, meaning every so often I will do a couple of thousand extra damage. Quite nice. I quickly started to get used to using just the Conjure's abilities, and my kills started to be more like 1 minute and 10 seconds to 1 minute and 16 seconds. Which, if you think about it, is actually quite good. That's 171k DPM if you're getting a 70 second to 1 minute 10 second kill. Or if you really want to exclude that 30k hit at the end thanks to Deathmark, around 146k DPM. This is all without the first Necromancer's armor set, by the way, with a little bit of downtime of the ghost eventually dying. This is solid DPM. For comparison, a Reaper Demon when spamming scrolls has about 45k DPM as tested in a summoning tank video I did previously. It took me about 4 minutes and 45 seconds to kill Vindicta. Before the Reaper Demon nerf, it actually managed to kill Vindicta in just 2 minutes and 9 seconds by itself. These conjures are strong. Also, I met this guy with a massive pet boulder in the PVM hub. I don't know why, but I just thought you should know about it. Let's move on. Now, for some reason, my brain didn't consider Hermod as the best option to see if these conjures had good DPM at first, and I went to Vindicta. So I ended up going to Hermod, and the reason Hermod is such a good place to test out this Necro Summoner build is because you literally cannot deal any magic damage to the boss, so my wand was well suited for just being my adrenaline stick. The results I got at Hermod were even better than at Vindicta, as I was getting consistent 1 minute kills, mainly because Hermod doesn't really move around. For some reason, when he spawns his minions, even though Hermod is about to be nuked by Deathmark, he doesn't actually get nuked, so I was left annoyed at missing the kill there. What I ended up doing to kill Hermod before his minions spawned with just my conjures was to use the zombie secondary to make it explode for a big hit just before they spawned, and boom, 50-second kill. 240k DPM. I was satisfied. What isn't as satisfying is that spirit damage does not work on Dagannoth Kings at all, so you're left killing whatever these things are. Apparently, they drop Mimic kill tokens. Out of frustration, I killed an elite giant Mimic, which honestly wasn't too bad. The only icky part of the fight with Conjures are the mini Mimics that require you to switch targets before you can continue the fight. While you aren't able to take on the Dagannoth Kings, you are able to take on the Rex Matriarchs, and I don't think any damage from the Conjures is actually reduced when taking on these Rexes. My skeleton was still hitting those 17, 18, 1900s, and, I was able to take them out one by one. No problem. Now, I'm sure you're already aware that you're able to one-stall Calflight Queen as long as you're using Necromancy, whether that's Necromancy or Spirit damage, it doesn't matter. If you didn't, now you know. Corporal Beast is another strange boss that will eat your familiars if you bring them inside, but does not eat your conjures. Now, the boss seems to be hard-coded to reduce incoming damage by 50% unless that damage is coming from a spear-type weapon. Weirdly enough, the zombie stench passive, so the attack that hits poison damage every 1.2 seconds, is not reduced. In fact, it can even be boosted by the haunt ability from the ghost to still hit 1500s at Corporal Beast, which is interesting. This still doesn't mean that you should be using Necromancy Corporal Beast, but that's just a fun fact, I guess. So far, the Necro Summoner does look promising, but how does it perform at some real bosses with mechanics? The first boss I wanted to try next was the Archgalasaur in hard mode, albeit at 0% enraged to make it a little easier. One cool thing I noticed straight away is that your conjures do not care about the ice spikes at all and will continue to smack the boss even if you're dealing with the beams mechanic, which is pretty cool. Dealing with the minions, on the other hand, isn't so cool. The only real AoE I have is the zombie exploding, and if I end up moving the minions, it just isn't effective and drags things out. Another tricky part of the fight is the little DPS burst you need during the exposed core mechanic to take out the arms. This isn't a big deal per se at this enrage, but it did end up killing me the first time round, only because I messed up my summons uptime and couldn't use the command skeleton warrior ability to brrr down the arms. Overall though, killing the Article Ace on hard mode is probably doable, even at higher enrages, just using Conjures. Next up, Daddy Longlegs. I literally got Araxer down to phase life points before the web was fully burnt down just using Conjures. This used to be a sign of good damage output during its release, and these Conjures are soloing it with ease. I picked Darkness Path so that I could summon and juice up my summons in peace going into phase 3. Which I breezed through, mind you, into phase 4. Okay, scary cause minion path open. Rax spawns minions. No, we don't want to see that mirror back. Kill it and continue. Rax dies. In 4 minutes. This was my reaction. What? I'm not going to lie, I did not expect the boss to be so doable with just Conjures. Yes, I know the mechanics, and someone learning the boss is obviously not going to just use Conjures, but that's crazy. By the way, instead of reflecting, Conjures stop dealing damage when a mirrorback spider spawns. Interesting. I did some more kills, and it just felt weird that I was killing the boss in 4 to 5 minutes. I mean, younger me 6 or 7 years ago would have been happy with those kill times. Insane. Very much did not expect the kills to go so well. I figured, hey, it's time for Telos. Let's just go ahead and do Telos at 100% enrage. I haven't done the boss in a long time. I'm just making excuses here. Let's just go in and attempt this. The main problems I encountered straight away were damage output, not because the Conjures weren't dealing good damage, because on their own they were, but I was just missing that extra bit of damage to breeze through those phases, which caused me to eat a bit more food than I liked. The other main problem, which I mainly encountered in phase 4, was AoE damage. The only option I had was to explode the zombies. If I didn't, I would have to, manually target the minions every single font I charged, which was just a major pain in the ass. Phase 4 was not fun at all, and it caused me to eat a lot of food. I was messing up a lot of things. I was basically panicking like a new PVMer because I was trying to keep my Conjures alive while trying to deal with these mechanics, and it was a lot. And I ended up dying in phase 5 twice, mainly because I just panicked. Again, panic is bad when PVMing. I didn't end up clearing the minions or golems properly, and everything went downhill from there. I'm not the best PVMer, guys, remember that. I can do every boss in the game reasonably comfortably, but I do need to warm up and get used to the mechanics again if I haven't done it in a long time. That being said, third time round, perfect zombie explosion, all the minions or golems are dead, and I get phase 5 down before the instant kill. No problem. This fully convinced me that with practice, I'm sure that any boss in the game, including group bosses, could be killed with a Necro Summoner build, especially if you're using a Ripper Demon additionally. Yes, you might need to make some exceptions for stuns, like at the Zuck Pizza phase, but it can work. Now you might be wondering, what's the point of all of this? Well, I don't know.